Well, everyone, welcome back. I hope you guys are well and warm. Kicking a fly today. Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. This is episode 3. And I want to just say a quick thank you to everybody who's been supporting and being very kind in regards to the comments. Critical, but kind and understanding. I really appreciate that. I've been listening to a lot of the feedback over the course of the last couple weeks, and generally speaking, it's been positive. I got to be honest though, the amount of dads and fathers and men that have reached out to me in regards to, their position as a father and as a husband and a man has really been touching. It's allowed me to, I knew these conversations needed to be had, and I knew that we weren't having them enough, but I really didn't think that the response would be as accepting as it really was, and I didn't think that the void that men suffer from would be so vast. There are a number of men out there that suffer from some of the very same situations that I did, and I, it's reassuring to know that I'm not just talking to myself, because I really think that having this conversation will lead us to being able to hold ourselves accountable and allowing us to be the best version of ourselves. So today's episode, I really wanted to focus on the roles, the responsibilities of what it takes to be a man. Something that I really wanted to clarify over my last videos is that I really wasn't answering what does it take to do better. In the last episode, I discussed raising a child as a fatherless father, and I gave a lot of insight or a lot of my opinions or my story as to how I feel as a father and a man, and I kind of left out what it takes to be a good man and father. And that's something that I really want to highlight, because as I mentioned, I don't want this to be just a place where I come and I complain and I whine and bitch and moan about my story and my existence. I wanted this to be constructive. I really want this to be an opportunity for men to come together and hash out their problems, but also find solutions so that we can provide better. And so one of the things I was discussing, a good friend of mine posed the question. He says, I watched your video on being a father without a father, and my question was, and so he said to me, his question was, what would you have wanted your dad to do better? Was there anything he could have done? And and I said, yeah, of course. I understand that he had to be away. He had to provide. He had to work. But there's more to being a good dad and a good father than working, than providing just monetary gain for your family. There's families out there that can do a lot with a little in regards to finances. So that can't be the only variable. And so that kind of made me realize that, rather than being constructive, I also need to provide, insight as to what would be an appropriate response to try to avoid being a father that just works away all of his time. And so I just wanted to be upfront, because I could tell that my friend was kind of taking my words um, to heart. This guy is a hardworking dad. Not only does he provide for his family, he provides for his wife, he provides for his community, and then he also is emotionally available for his kids. And this is a man that has to work away from home. And when he's away for weeks at a time. And as he listens to my video, he's thinking, "Wow, I am this guy that Pigeons is talking about. I'm this dad that's just working away in my kid's life." And when he asked me what could he do better, I wanted him to know that the example that I provided as a father, for me, is not the same as someone who is working hard for their family. Just because you have to be away from home to do your job doesn't mean you can't be a good father. You can be a great father. Work has to happen. We can't provide for our families without putting in some kind of work and receiving a paycheck. So to just ignore the idea that, okay, well, I just need to be here emotionally for my family, that doesn't cut it. No, you do need to provide. You do have to work. but it's what you do outside of work that really makes the biggest difference. Going to work, making the paycheck, coming home, ensuring your wife puts the food on the table. That's not enough. That's not enough. Your family needs more than money to really thrive and be the best version of itself. So I really wanted to let him know that, I've watched his parenting techniques. Him and I have grown up together, and I've seen what the kind of father that he is to his children, and he's an amazing dad. He's there emotionally for them. He's always trying to provide, not only just financially, but he's trying to provide, clarity and insight into their futures. And he's always trying to challenge them with new tasks and new hobbies. And that's what it's meant to be a father. You do have to work, but you don't need to work away your child's life. That's really the biggest difference. And so today I really wanted to focus on the roles of being a man and a father, because I don't believe that you can be a good father without being a good man. You can be a good man without being a good father, though. But I don't think you can be a good father without being a good man. So what does it take to be a good man? In my opinion, you really need to understand your self identity, your own individualism, your own individuality, rather. You need to understand what your interests are, what makes you tick, what are your dislikes, what are your goals in life, what is your vision for you and your family, what is your code of conduct, and then more importantly, what are you doing it for? What is everything you put your mind to being done for? Is it for you? Is it for family, country, community? That's something that you need to understand. That's something that you need to kind of seek and find. But understanding your own individuality, I think, is the very first step to being a good man. I don't think you can provide for anybody else if you can't provide for yourself, right? At a very young age, I had to be able to provide for myself. As I mentioned, I didn't have any real role models. I was out of my house shortly after 16 years old, in and out, and then moved away officially, before I was 18. Um, and I didn't have anyone. I didn't have mother figure, didn't have a father figure. My friends were still trying to figure out who they were in this world. And so as I set out into the world, I very quickly needed to figure out what what was my vision, what was my code of conduct, and what was I doing this all for. And I'll tell you, I didn't figure it out right away. It took, years to figure out. I had to live through trial and error. I experimented with drugs, experimented with friends, experimented with just jobs. I experimented with everything, just trying on a mission to kind of figure out what my purpose was. And as time went on, I started to realize that, I really enjoy the feeling of being a good person, holding the door open for people, not littering, smiling more, contributing both financially and physically to your community. These things have purpose. These things allowed you to be proud of where you are and who you are. And I think that's really important. So, individuality and understanding yourself and being able to provide for yourself is important. One of the first steps of becoming a man. But of course, it's not all about you. Just because you have the ability or you have the wherewithal to provide for yourself and to go to work every day and buy a new car and so on and so forth doesn't mean you have the ability to provide for a family, to look out for other people. And that's why I think the next part of being a man is taking care of your community. Assuming you don't have a family yet, assuming that you don't have children, after individuality, I think your community should come next. Whether that's volunteering, sports teams, volunteering for townwide cleanups, volunteering for events, and what have you. Volunteering goes a long way. As a volunteer in my community, I understand that finding volunteers is incredibly difficult. People do not want to give up their time. It's very valuable. They've got other things going on and don't want to contribute back to the community. But the more time and effort we put into our communities, that result comes back. When you put time into your community, the kids are going to benefit. They're going to have less time to get in trouble. There's going to be more things for them to do, less idle hands. These kids are going to have role models. They're going to look up to you. This is very important. I think once we find ourselves, we kind of got to put ourselves in a position to ensure that those coming after us can have a solid foundation to find themselves as well. But after community comes family, and these can kind of come twofold. Some people have families before communities, and some people are in communities before families, so they can often be tied together. But you can't take care of yourself, and you're not going to be able to not take care of yourself and take care of other people. So that's why I start with the individual. Take care of yourself first. You need to be in a position to swim so that you can help others that are drowning. If you can't swim, you're not going to save anybody else. You're going to drown too. So then it's family. You have an obligation to take care of the people around you, whether that's your parents, whether that's your friends, whether that's your friends' parents, whether that's your community elders, whether that's the homeless, whether that's the impoverished, anything, regardless. It doesn't matter. You have an obligation to support your community. If your community thrives, you're going to thrive too. Kids are going to be less likely to get in trouble. People are going to be more inclined to participate in events and so on and so forth. I think that's very important. I also think that you should be doing town-wide cleanups, whether that's just cleaning up around your block, whether it's just cleaning up around your yard, going a couple blocks out, maybe going down the street, so on and so forth. You gotta clean up. You gotta put time in order to get things out, and that's very important. And then after community comes country. I think as a man, we need to stand for the things that we believe in. You should participate in elections. You should participate in your political process. Perhaps you should, give back a little bit. Maybe that's charitable work. Maybe that's, volunteer work. We have an obligation to ensure the sustainability of our country. I think we should be in tuned with not all global events, but you should have your finger on the pulse, if you will, in terms of like what's going on in your country and abroad, because these things are relevant. We need to participate in our local, or we need to participate in our political arenas as well, so that we can ensure we got the right people in charge, making the right policy, and so on and so forth. So once you take care of the individual, your community, the family, and your country, then that's when we can start working on those individual roles. What does it take to be a father? All right, well, now we can get into this. Now that we're taking care of all of those other fundamentals, now we're in a position to understand, what does it take to be responsible? What does it take to be accountable? What does it take to put yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation? Because guess what? As a father, you're going to live in that uncomfortable realm. Things are just not going to be the way that they used to be. You are now responsible for more human beings. Starting a family is, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges, hurdles, adventures that you are, as a man, are going to take on, and it is incredibly rewarding. But you need to kind of understand that you have to take care of yourself. You've got to be able to take care of those needs before you can start taking care of other people. So what does it take to be a good father? Well, I think around the world, the meaning of being a good father is different depending on where you are. Even in time, you look back into like the 1950s, 1960s, the role of a man back then was much different than the role of a man slash father now. A role of a father in the 1950s was to go to work, to come home, provide that monetary gain for your family, and be the support, the backbone of your household, if you will. Well, now that women are in the workforce more than they ever have before, and in fact actually are outpacing men in the workforce, that role, that idea of what it takes to be a father, is being diminished in terms of its old school definition. Now women are making the same, if not more than men. They are often the breadwinners in the houses, and this can kind of leave a feeling of void, or a feeling of needlessness, or um, uh, useless, unworthiness, if you will. And and so today, you're seeing a lot more dads staying at home. You're seeing a lot more dads that aren't the main breadwinners of the home. And this has kind of evolved the definition. No longer are you just expected to go work and come home. No. No, you are expected to be a productive member of your family. You have to be there both financially for your kids, but also emotionally for your kids. Children need dads in the home. I think we talked about this before, that 40% of families grow up without dads in the home. That's a problem. Men need to be there to set roles and responsibilities for other young men, for their boys. And if that's not available, these children will not be given the adequate tools that they need to go on into the real world and be successful. The things that I struggle with without having a male role model in the house is exactly what I want to avoid for my son. I have to admit, it is incredibly difficult to show affection to my son. I don't know what the right level of affection is. I don't know if it's acceptable to still kiss my boy on the lips. He's 12. I don't know if it's acceptable to, when it's acceptable to hug. I drop him off for school, for example, and there's other kids around, and I immediately get uncomfortable because I don't know what's acceptable. I don't know how other dads, show affection to their children. I'm kind of under the impression that, love and affection should be unconditional. You should show love and affection at any time that you can, of course, within reason. And this is something that I've really really struggled with, because I was never loved by another man. I was never hugged, I was never kissed, I was never embraced, and this leaves a void because I don't know what's acceptable. And that transcends outside of the home as well, because I don't know how to show affection to children, and men are generally looked at as like predators when it comes to children. And that lingers in the back of my mind because I don't want to be looked at as a predator. I love kids. I love their energy, and I love their innocence, and I love the creativity and imagination that they have. But at the same time, there's this stereotype that men are predators, and that you have to be weary of men who are around children. And this is such a disadvantage to men. I love kids. I love playing with kids. I love coaching kids, teaching kids, watching them grow. And I remember in 2018, I was approached by the essentially the moms of a U12 soccer team. The boys team didn't have enough players, and I was already coaching. And so this year, they had said, "Hey, would you be interested in coaching the girls team this year?" And essentially, my response was no. Unfortunately, I won't. It's my response was, it's 2018, and I don't want to put myself in a position that's going to put me or my family at risk of any kind of um, defamation or accusations or so on and so forth. Because let's face it, all it takes is one complaint, and it won't be a complaint from one of the families. It'll be a complaint from someone who knows somebody who saw someone's tweet about something. You know what I mean? And they're going to be the ones that raise a stink. And so I just kindly said no. Unfortunately, I appreciate you guys reaching out. I will not be able to coach the kids this year. And I told them why. I just said, it's 2018, and I just don't want to put myself in that position. And it turned out that later on, that mom had gone to the other parents on the team and had like a bit of a meeting and said, "Hey, this is what he said. This is why he won't coach. What can we do? And so as a collective, the moms came to me and they said, you know what, we actually talked about this and we really want you to coach our kids. And I said, okay, all right, well, I appreciate that I have the consensus of everybody on the team. That helps. But I said, you know what, I'm going to do it, but I'm only going to do it if there is a mom on the bench at the same time as me always. So at any given time, if there was ever a time where there was kid, I wanted a mom to be present, so that there would be no question or no misunderstanding about anything that happened because there would be somebody there. What a mental gymnastics you got to put yourself through. What an incredible kind of avenue to take to try to coach children sports, but this is just the reality, you know. I wasn't going to take any chances, and I know that this feeling that I have or that I suffer from is not it's not an isolated event. I know that there's a ton of men out there that suffer the same things as me, and then kind of don't have an opportunity to, I love coaching. It was one of the best things I ever did, and I'm so glad that I did make the decision to do it because it was one of the most rewarding things I'd ever been involved in. It was one of the greatest projects that I had ever done. And I still to this day say that I got more out of coaching those kids than those kids got out from me. I was out of trouble. I just got to be a fool. Like, I love being around kids, man. So it's so great. And so I am so glad that I continued my coaching. But that wasn't to say that it didn't come with a lot of forethought and a lot of analyzation in order to determine whether this was going to be the right decision for me and my family. But it was, and it was, and if I could say to the next dude that's going to be considering coaching, I say do it. Do it. Maybe take the same steps. Don't put yourself. You do. It's 2023. You have to make sure you're not putting yourself in a position that's going to be uh, 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 jeopardizing to you and your family. That's the reality of the situation. So, I do understand a lot of my friends, men in particular, that love coaching. Good, coach, but take the steps to ensure that you're also going to be safe. Okay, because it's a crazy, crazy world out there. But but not having the role model while I was growing up just really made it or did it was a disservice to my ability to grow because I didn't know what the right answer was. I've essentially had to figure out the roles of a man and a father through trial and error. It's an inverse lesson. I essentially learned what to do by learning what not to do. And there's some validity to that. I think you really can learn a lot about parenting and about being a man from watching examples of people doing it horribly. And that's okay. And I think that's okay. Um, but I think it's important for us to know that, there's going to be some additional steps that need to be taken in order for us to realize that, we have the ability to parent, to man, um, without question. So, uh, when it comes to being a good father, you know, I really think that there are some things that we really need to do for our children. You know, um, we need to be a confidant. When our children have problems, they should be able to come to their dads. They should be able to talk to their dads about issues that they're suffering or that they're having. They should be able to brainstorm with you, whether it's trying to determine what's going to be the course of action to bully, what's going to be the appropriate way to talk to that girl or that boy. There's just some things that you're going to be able to provide for your children that someone else won't, that your wife or their mother won't be able to provide. She understands, your wife, their mother understands the life of a woman through the eyes of a woman. You understand life of a man and a father through the eyes of a man and a father. That can't be replaced. In the same way that a father can't replace the roles of a female or of a mother, and a mother can't replace the roles of a father. They can try, and in a lot of cases, can somewhat be successful, can raise independent children, but there's going to be something missing at the end. And for me, like I said, growing up, I was raised by my buddies' moms. I was always intimidated by the dads, and but they still taught me enough, that I was able to provide. I'm a hard worker. I was able to complete my education, and these were all provided to me, or at least were aspects of my life that were enhanced because of women. But the things that I'm missing, like the affection and the understanding of what it takes to be a man, these are things that I just never learned and that I had to try to figure out as I moved forward. And that's where I kind of, as I've touched on this at the beginning, it's like I kind of hold three things to be it, almost like the pillars of manlyhood. The first one, and actually I got this from a book, um, uh, How to Raise a Modern Day Knight. And in that book, there's three courses of action. There's your vision as a man. What is your vision? What's your path? Where do you see yourself? What is your final destination? Think about that right now. We go to work, we slave away for someone that we barely know, making barely enough money. We come home. Why did you do that? Why did you go to work for someone that you don't like, you don't know, to make barely any money, just just so that you can struggle a little bit more? How come? How come? What made that worth it? I think it's very, very important to have that understanding, because let me tell you, that 9 to 5 can be deteriorating to your mental capacity. It will screw you up. 9 to 5, horrible amount of time that you have to put toward your employer. You don't get paid enough. You're under incentivized. Your bonuses aren't there. Why? Why did you do it? Bet you there's a reason. And is it for the prosperity of your family? Is it for is it for your ability to see the development and success of everything you've worked towards? This is something that you need to think about. I know my vision. My vision in life is that I want to provide a world for my family, for my son, that I never had. I want to lay the framework down for him to capitalize on and become the best that he can be, without having to worry about food, without having to worry about love, without ever having to worry about, shelter. These are very important things that often get overlooked, but if you don't have them, you are at a massive disadvantage, and you don't have them. When I was homeless, I knew I didn't have a home. When I was hungry, I knew I was hungry. I knew I didn't have any food. So I don't want my son to go through that. I don't want my wife to go through that. I want everything to be in such a way that allows them to be the best version of themselves without having to struggle. Now, of course, adversity is key to growing up, but I just don't think you should have to struggle on things like food, shelter, and love, you know? At least not from your family. So if those things are guaranteed, it sure makes things a lot easier. That's my vision. Make my son's life just that much easier so he doesn't have to worry about love, the fundamentals of existence, and then he can become the best that he can be, and whatever version of that it is. What's your number two? What is your code of conduct? How are you going to conduct yourself? And what's important is not not how you're going to conduct yourself in such a way that's going to be visible to others, but how are you going to conduct yourself in a way that is not seen by others? When nobody's watching, what are you going to do with your own two hands? You need to be able to sleep at night. You need to be able to live with your actions. So, how are you going to conduct yourself? I personally have told myself that I am going to do whatever it takes to be the best man possible. That involves using manners, that involves working hard, that involves providing for my family, both financially, mentally, physically, you know. And I also want to provide, I want to be a rock for my family. So if they ever have an issue, if they ever needed something, they can count on their dad. That's the way I want to conduct myself. I'm going to hold the door open for the person behind me. I'm going to smile a little bit bigger for everyone. I'm going to wave at the next guy. I want to be a good person. That's my conduct. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good, sober, moral, prudent person. I think that's okay. But that does not come naturally. We as human beings are selfish. We're ignorant. We're assholes. And you need to work to avoid that because it's not going to come naturally. You can't just wake up one day and think, you know what? I'm just going to be a great person and then it just works out that way. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. In fact, you need to try every day. You are going to be tempted and you are going to be, you know, distracted many, many times, you know, and you got to make the decision to conduct yourself in a way that's becoming and is satisfying to you because you got to sleep at the end of the night. So, when it comes to I try to avoid negativity. Of course I complain. Sure, it's okay to be passionate about things and to complain. Um, but I want to be constructive, right? So it's one thing to just bitch and moan and complain, but you also need to be critical. Bitch, moan, and complain, but how do you fix it? You're the man of your life. You can't ask someone else to come fix your shit for you. No, that's you. That's you. You need to be able to take control and harness your own life. Jeepers Louise, Batman. And the sooner that we come to terms that we are the the captain of our ship. Can we stop, please? We have to quit asking and we quit relying on other people to do our work for us. We are men. We can take care of ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we don't need help. We got to be able to admit when we need help. That's why we have a spouse, that's why we have wives, that's why we have fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, community members. And that's why it's important to be a community member because you might be called upon to help, and that's something that we must be able to provide. So between a vision, a code of conduct, and a cause, what is your cause? Whether it's a spiritual cause, a religious cause, why are you doing this? What is it that makes your purpose worth it? A lot of people like to, I'm myself, I'm not a God fearing man. I've never really been a religious man, but maybe that's just because I'm unaware or ignorant to the real problems. Um, but I'm a strong believer that that there is a higher power. There is a bigger meaning to life. What is that meaning? I don't know. What is that higher power? I actually believe it's you. I believe that higher power is in here, and we need to search it, we need to find it, and make it the best version of itself. I do believe that we, as I mentioned, we struggle with temptation and ignorance and selfishness, and this is something that we need to kind of battle from within. And that power is in here, and we'll find it. We'll find it, but it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come easy. And I think that kind of creates the journey that we're on in terms of, trying to determine our own purpose. And what is it? I don't know. I don't know what we're put on this planet for. I don't know what. I really don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is that the satisfaction of being a good person, providing for my wife, my family, my son, my in-laws, has created a purpose for me that makes me feel great when I can get my job done. And that feeling of just success or significance is so important because I don't think our success should be measured based on how much money we make or how big our house is or what kind of car we drive. The success should be measured by the amount of love, the amount of affection that you have for your family and that your family and community have for you. I think that's what it's all about. And I'm not sure what the answer to getting to that destination is, but I do know that the answer is in the journey. I don't think that we'll get to the end of life and say, got it, just figured it out. I really think that the stories, the memories, the time, the investment, the love, the connections, the relationships that we make along the way to our final destination is what makes it all worth it. It's what makes us the men, the fathers that we really are. Put that time in to the journey so that your destination just feels that much better once you get there, and because if you get there and there was no journey, what was it all for? You know, you stampeded, you bulldozed through everybody in your life to get to that destination, and now you're there. You've got nobody to celebrate it with. I don't think that can't be our calling. It really can't. But nonetheless, I know I struggle with what it takes to be a man, what it takes to be a father every single day. I work on trying to do that. But as I started off this show, I really want I really want this show to be a point of constructive criticism, a place where we can come to kind of understand that we are not alone, that the work that we're putting in as men and fathers to our family has purpose, but it needs to be so much more than just the money that we bring to the table. My dad could have been a great father if he put family before his job. Some dads have to work. They have to go away. They have to be away from their family. But that doesn't mean when they're not working that they're not spending their time with their family. Your children are a direct result of you. They are the byproduct of their dads. Give them everything that you did not get from your father because you owe it to them. You owe it to yourself because you know what it's like to be left out in the cold, to cry by yourself in the pillows of your own bed. Don't make your kids go through that. They don't have to. They don't deserve it. Be the man that your dad wasn't. And I think that's really the message that I wanna convey. If you're working hard and away from your family, when you're home, are you there for them? And if the answer is yes, you're a good dad. You're a good dad. And you're already steps ahead of the other guy that's working to avoid his life because he doesn't like his life, so he makes work his life. That's what we need to avoid. Let's put dads back into the homes. Let's put men back into the home. But it's up to you and it's up to me. No one's going to do that for us. What a great conversation. What does being a man, what does being a father mean to you? Do you struggle with some of the fundamentals of being a man? And does that does that inherently make it difficult to be a father? I really want to know, because as I said, like I know I suffer from my own issues because I didn't have that love from a father, and it's left me ill prepared, and it leaves a void in me because I don't know if I'm providing everything for my father or for my son. So, guys, that's all the time I have. Thanks for listening to me today. I really appreciate everything. I know I repeat myself. It's part of my shtick. I know that this is a learning lesson for all of us. I don't have the answers, but I do want to provide a spot where we can come and just air out our grievances. Okay, our wives don't have to know about this. All right, this could be our solace. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys for being here. Much love. I'll see you next week. Peace.